Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bay Bolts channel. The Tampa Bay Lightning have their round three opponent. It's going to be the New York Islanders, a rematch of last year here in the semifinals, as we're calling it this year, because it's a little different. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is my good friend and co-host Michael Wax. Michael, how you doing today?
Doing well. Like you said, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference final. Apparently, they're not allowed to call it the Eastern Conference Finals, but they'll still be fighting over the Prince of Wales trophy, and they'll be fighting for a berth in the Stanley Cup Finals. You got Montreal and Vegas on the other side of the bracket, so some really good hockey from both series. But this one is honestly, for Bolts fans, the only one that matters.
Absolutely. So you're right. You mentioned that it's not technically the Eastern Conference Finals, although and originally they weren't going to give out the Prince of Wales trophy this year, but they changed their minds apparently, and they are doing it this year. So interesting things on going on with the NHL, but I like that they're doing that. But nonetheless, let's get into breaking down this series. We got a couple of sections. I'm going to have some timestamps down below for you guys if you want to skip to a certain section of the video. But let's start off with the series schedule. I'll put it up on screen right now. So the first game is going to be on Sunday, June 13th at 3 p.m. That's going to be tomorrow as of when this video goes up. Starting off the series in Tampa Bay, because for the first time, Michael, the Lightning are the home team. They're the higher seed in this one. Next game is at Tuesday, June 15th at 8 p.m. Thursday, June 17th at 8 p.m. That's the first game that's going to be in New York. Saturday, June 19th at 8 p.m. All these games are going to be at 8 p.m. after the first one. And then Monday, June 21st, Wednesday, June 23rd, and Friday, June 25th are all the if necessary games. Again, all of those games at 8 p.m. So a good schedule, I would say, Michael. You have no back to backs. Don't have to worry about that. You do have a 3 p.m. game to start things off, but other than that, consistency throughout the whole thing, which I think is good for both teams.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, we didn't have to get to this point last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, but the back-to-back would have been Game 6 and Game 7. So they decided to sprinkle in a back-to-back. They had to hand the trophy out at like before a certain day, and ultimately the Lightning made sure that that didn't happen, so that they continue on the schedule. They didn't have to do that back-to-back. Today, this time, there's no 3-day break or 2-day break like there was in the last series against Carolina, the break between games 4 and game 5. Uh, as far as what each atmosphere is going to look like, you have Amalie Arena increasing to 14,800 people, which is about 77.5% capacity. And with the Islanders, I don't have the exact number, but Jake, does it really matter? Because they are loud all the time. They are rowdy all the time. What a fan base. It's going to be really hard for the Lightning to win road games, especially with that X factor in there. But hey, the Lightning are a really good road team, and this is probably going to be their biggest road test.
Absolutely. The Lightning have won, well, both series they started off on the road and they won both of those road games. So I'm definitely sure they'll be looking to recreate that. Islanders fans were chanting, "We won Tampa" when they won their series against Boston. Islanders fans, be careful what you wish for. We're ready for you. But you're right. It's going to be interesting. I know a lot of Lightning fans are disappointed that we are not at 100% capacity just yet. But the good news is they are still increasing. So it's only a matter of time. We should be there very soon at full capacity. But I know even the 14,000 fans at Amalie Arena will be loud and ready to go. Let's look at how these teams stack up against each other in the playoffs and the playoff statistics and put those on screen now. So taking a look at this, there's some interesting stats that we have to get into and talk about, Michael. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are at a 41.7% on the power play in the playoffs, which is just it's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy number. The only team that's close to them is the Colorado Avalanche at 41.4, but they're out of the playoffs now here after losing to Vegas in round number two. As for the New York Islanders, their power play also very good at 28.1%. And then looking at the penalty kill, the Lightning at 77.8%. They're about middle of the pack when it comes to all of the playoff teams. And then the New York Islanders at 61.5% on the penalty kill. Looking at the goals for per game, the Lightning at 3.45. And meanwhile, for the New York Islanders, it's a 3.58. So both teams very similar there, but the Islanders do contain a little bit of an edge. As for goals against per game, you might think the New York Islanders have a better goals against per game since they are known as a defensive team, but you'd be wrong, surprisingly. The Tampa Bay Lightning at 2.36 goals against per game. Meanwhile, the New York Islanders at 2.75. So pretty close stats, Michael, when you look at it all in whole. But I think the biggest interesting stat here from these teams is that power play versus penalty kill.
Yeah, if you're the New York Islanders, message number one from Barry Trotz to that team is stay out of the penalty box. Because when the Islanders have the lead, they will not let you do anything. They won't let you gain the zone. They won't let you get a shot on net. And the rare opportunity that you do get a shot on net, it's going to be from the outside. They're not going to let you have any grade A chances. And it's up to the Lightning to break that if they ever fall behind in one of these games. I remember in the final game of the Boston New York series, Boston went 11 minutes without a third period shot in a game that they were losing by multiple goals. So the Islanders really do that well. But again, the Lightning's power play is just really, really good with Stamkos and Kucherov and Hedman and Point and Killorn on that first unit. I don't think the second unit scored at all in these playoffs, which is weird to say considering that the Lightning's power play number is so high. But you've got Anthony Cirelli, Tyler Johnson, Andre Palat, Mikhail Sergachev if he's back there, Ryan McDonough if he's back there. The power play has not missed a beat. The Islanders' penalty kill is not very good. So this is the perfect opportunity for the Lightning to score more goals on the power play. And, we'll bring up a little bit of a concerning stat later in terms of power play versus even strength points for the Lightning. But if they keep on humming on the power play, I don't think the even strength matters too much.
No, you're right. As you mentioned earlier, the New York Islanders have to stay out of the box because the Lightning power play will make them pay. That's how good it's been for the Lightning this year. Now, the good news, if you're a New York Islanders fan, and maybe something concerning if you're a Lightning fan, is that the New York Islanders are one of the least penalized team when it comes to minor penalties. They do not take a lot of penalties, which is good for them when you're going up against a team like the Lightning, who are over 40% on the power play. But that's about we're looking at the stats about 3 power plays per game on average, which still is not good when the Lightning have a 40% success rate on the power play. They can still score goals even if you only give them 3 chances. So they definitely have to limit that. And Michael, the Islanders power play is also pretty good as well at 28%. If you took away the Lightning and the Colorado Avalanche, who are just at insane numbers right now. That's a very respectable top power play number. And the Lightning's penalty kill is decent. They were really good against Carolina, I think, especially if they can continue that, that will be helpful. But special teams is going to be a key, interesting point in this series because I think the Lightning can really take advantage of it too if they get the opportunities. But let's go on to your difference makers here for this one. So starting off with the Tampa Bay Lightning, Michael, your difference maker is Mikhail Sergachev. Looking at his stats, he's played 11 games so far in the playoffs, no goals and 2 assists for a total of 2 points. But we'll get to this when I ask you about him. Sergachev really has been a really good shot blocker, especially as of late, and can still make an impact even when he's not on the score sheet. As for the New York Islanders, you have selected Jean-Gabriel Pageau. I apologize if I mispronounced that last name, but I think I got it. He's played 12 games so far. He leads the team in points. He has 3 goals, 10 assists, and 13 points. So, Michael, tell me why you selected these 2 players as your difference makers.
Yeah, so I'm going to start out with John Gabriel Pageau, and it might be a cop out to pick out the guy who had the most points for the Islanders in this playoff so far. He's 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points in 12 games, like you mentioned, but he's also their second line center. Like he is drawing attention away from Matt Barzell. And Matt Barzell is one of the premier centers in the league. Trust me, we knew when we heard about it all the time from NBC last year when they compared him to Hall of Famers. So everybody is focusing on Matt Barzell. Everybody's focusing on the first line of the Islanders, and everybody's also focusing on the fourth line of the Islanders because their fourth line is probably the best in hockey. However, this second line has been really good for the Islanders, and it's been headed up by John Gabriel Pageau. He's a noted playoff performer. Last year in 22 games, he had 8 goals and 11 points. The last time he was in the playoffs, not with the Islanders, with the Senators, he had 8 goals and 10 points in 19 games when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So he's a noted playoff goal scorer. He's someone that the Lightning are really going to have to look after. He is another guy that is going to get in the face of the Lightning as well. We saw what happened at the end of, I believe it was game 3 of the 2020 Eastern Conference Finals, that melee between Kucherov and Pageau that led to everything else that went on. So he is someone that really can score, get in the heads of the Lightning defenders more specifically, and the forwards if he's really bothering them. And he's someone that can be a difference maker. And again, I'm not trying to cop out by saying that he's a difference maker just because he's leading the team in points, but ultimately he is someone that you don't normally think about when you think about the Islanders, but he is the perfect guy for the Islanders if they want to come back in full form and win this series and head to the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, as far as Mikhail Sergachev goes, a night and day between his series with the Carolina Hurricanes and his
No
first
question.
round series against the Florida Panthers. Against the Panthers, and we talked about this with Greg Linelli on our Twitter spaces. He said he didn't look that bad. I said he looked on the verge of unusability. Like he was performing to a level that I don't think we've ever seen before from him specifically. And then the series against the Hurricanes comes. He puts up some points, but also, as you mentioned, he's a shot blocker now, which is a role that he's sort of starting to fill that used to be Ryan McDonough's main role. McDonough has taken more of an approach to jump up in the play, and that leaves Sergachev to be the guy to go and block shots when he's paired with McDonough. Now, Sergachev is your Swiss Army knife on defense. He can play with Hedman. He can play with Sergachev. Or he can play with Hedman. He can play with McDonough. He can play with Eric Chernak if he wants to. He can play with David Savard. He hasn't played with Jan Ruda. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually get a couple of minutes together in this series as well. He can play with anybody. And he succeeded with anybody during the second round, which is so important to see. I'm not asking Sergachev to put up 10, 20 points in the series, but if he chips in a couple of assists, maybe he scores a goal. And also, he continues to be a really good defensive stalwart next to David Savard, who I think is an excellent teacher for Mikhail Sergachev. This is going to be a relatively easy series for that third pair if they're on their game.
Yeah, Sergachev was great against Carolina. He had 5 block shots just in that last game against them, and a lot of them were key blocks as well. So if he can keep up that performance, I really like what Sergachev could do for us in this series. And I would love to see Michael that Sergachev and Sergachev defensive pairing. That would be a great thing. No, I'm kidding. Let's go on though to my keys to the series for the Tampa Bay Lightning in this one. Starting off with number 1, and that's stay out of the box. I know the Lightning have the best power play, but again, as we mentioned, New York's got a pretty respectable one too, and the Lightning like to take a lot of stupid penalties, so they have got to cut that out. No more too many men on the ice penalty. That's a very easily avoidable one. Number 2, though, is capitalize on the power play. Again, as we mentioned, the Lightning with a lethal power play, but the New York Islanders very good at limiting the penalties that they take. So when they give it to you, you have to make sure that you capitalize there and score on the power play. And the third key to this series is play offensive. And really, this is about getting a lead early because, as we talked about, Michael, the New York Islanders are very good at shutting down the game when they need to if they've got a lead. So if Lightning get off to get to early leads, force New York to play a faster game, play from behind, take some penalties, and then Lightning get more power play opportunities, could possibly increase the score. We saw them do that multiple times in the series last year. So those are my keys to this series. Michael, your thoughts on those?
I think you nailed it with all three of them. One of the things that we have heard, specifically, I get this quote from Steve Dangle, hockey god on YouTube, but he says, the Islanders are basically like a boa constrictor when they get the lead. They will squeeze you until you have no more life left in you, and they will make sure that they win. The one of the things that the Lightning did so well last year against the Islanders is that when the Islanders got the lead, the Lightning were able to fight back. They went down 3-1 in the game three. They tied it. They didn't win, but they tied it. And then ultimately from there, it's back to a 0-0 game. You're shifting back to the offensive style. In game five, they scored. The Lightning responded 2 minutes later. In game six, they scored. The Lightning responded a couple minutes later. So I expect the Islanders to very much do the same thing. A lot of people talk about the Islanders like they don't have any skill. They have plenty of skill, but with the system that Barry Trotz has implemented, it really has allowed their defensive forwards, their defensemen, their goaltenders to shine, and it's put their skill guys in the back seat. But if you need goals from guys like Anthony Beauvillier and Matt Barzell and JG Pageau, they're going to give you goals. And it's up to the Lightning to make sure that they limit the amount of goals that are scored.
Now, you're right, absolutely. And the Lightning did that successfully last year. And if they can reproduce that, I think they got a really good shot at winning this series again. There's a couple more things I'd like to talk about before we wrap this video up. And one of those things is how similar these teams are, but one big difference from last year. So, again, both rosters very similar from what it was last year. They basically have the same team. But the difference for the New York Islanders is they did make some trade deadline moves. For example, Kevin Palmieri is here from the Devils, and I believe it's
Kyle Palmieri.
Kyle, I apologize. Him, and then I believe it's Travis Zajac who's here as well. The Islanders don't have their captain from last year as well, and Anders Lee. So that is the biggest differences for the Islanders from last year. But the Tampa Bay Lightning did not play with Steven Stamkos last year. So he is healthy and ready to go this year. So he will be something that the Islanders will have to deal with that they did not get to in the last time these two teams faced off in the postseason. Also, remember that these two teams have not faced each other this year. As we had the division formats with everybody playing their teams within their division, this is the first time teams are playing against other people that were not in their division. So that's going to be something interesting. We might see a filling out process in these first couple of games to learn how these. You can look at tape all you want, but until you play a team actually in a game, in a playoff game, you never know how these games are going to go. So that's something to keep your eye on to see how these games play out. And then, Michael, you mentioned something before we got started. The Lightning may have a bit of a problem when it comes to 5-on-5.
Yeah, so this was a stat that I saw on Twitter, and the person that had done it actually incorrectly. They had mentioned something that was correct and then something that was incorrect. So, but it was so fascinating, I wanted to take a deeper dive onto it. So, Nikita Kucherov is currently the leading scorer on the Tampa Bay Lightning in these playoffs and in the entire playoffs in general, with 18 points in just 11 games. Only 5 of those points have come at even strength. The even strength leaders for the Tampa Bay Lightning are 1, Alex Killorn. He's got 6. 2, Eric Chernak. He's also got 6. Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov both have 5. You need to score more at even strength. I know that the power play is going, but if the power play is not going like it wasn't in game 1 against Columbus or series 1 against Columbus last year, you're done. Like this could very easily become an Islanders series if the power play stalls out and the even strength scoring does not return. And let's be very frank with ourselves. The Lightning have gotten very lucky with some of the bounces they've gotten at even strength. Barclay Goodrow's goal in game 1, Alex Killorn's goal in game 2 against the Hurricanes. Both of those probably should have been saved. So when you are getting bounces, hopefully that generates the rest of your even strength offense. But ultimately, I really think that this is an important step for the Lightning, that they get a little bit more of even strength, even if it sacrifices their power play, because Colorado's not in it, Boston's not in it. Tampa Bay has a 13% advantage over the Islanders in power play percentage. If that goes down to 32, 33%, but the even strength scoring picks up a little bit, I don't think any Lightning fans are going to be complaining that they go from scoring two out of every 5 to 1 out of every 3, and then ultimately they're scoring more at even strength, and they could wrap up this series very easily. So it really comes down to the even strength scoring for the Lightning and the Islanders. The Islanders have been okay at even strength scoring. The Lightning have been just awful so far. So hopefully that gets better.
And one thing I will say to take kind of one a positive look at it, just so we can kind of look at both sides, is that does show that how good our depth is. Is that Eric Zernak is leading us in even strength points. So that's good to know that our depth is picking up the slack where it needs to be, which is helpful. But you're right, something interesting to keep your eye on and see how this all plays out. So before we wrap up this video, let's do our predictions. Michael, I'll start with you. What is your prediction for this series against the New York Islanders here on round number 3?
So I'm obviously gonna pick the Lightning to win, but I've seen a lot of people not give the Islanders any respect and say the Lightning are just gonna roll over them and go to the Cup finals. People seem not to remember last series. Like the Lightning were the better team in the 2020 Eastern Conference Finals. It took them 6 games because the Islanders were so dominant when they had the lead, and the Lightning used all of their energy to get back to a tie game, and then ultimately they fell short in a couple of those games. I'm going to go with Lightning in 6, a very close knit matchup, the same amount of games as last year. I would not be surprised if the Lightning blow out the Islanders in, let's say, game 2 or game 3, and the Islanders come right back and get a 1-goal win in game 4 or game 3. It is a very tight series. We know which team is better skilled. It's very obviously the Lightning. The Islanders have a ton of skill, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a series where if the Islanders control play for at least a couple of games, the Lightning are in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair prediction. So as for me, well, the Tampa Bay Lightning won their first series in 6 games. They won their second series in 5 games. So it's only right to think, right, that the Lightning are going to win this one in 4. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, that would be unbelievable if they pull that off. But I've said just about every time for each of these series that I expect them to go 6 or 7 games. They played very good teams. Florida was a great team. Carolina was a great team. New York is a great team. These teams are here for a reason. So I'm with you. I have Lightning in 6 just because they've not been to 7 games in what feels like forever. Last time they went to a game 7 was 2018 against the Capitals. So they know how to get things done before game 7. So I would only expect that they get back to 6 games as well here. So I say Lightning in 6. They could very easily do this quicker though if they play good like they've been playing before. But the New York Islanders could very easily force a game 7 and possibly win this series. This should be a close one. It should be a fun one. One thing I will say too as well is that I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but the New York Islanders have never won a series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They faced off them a couple of times, including in 2004, where the Lightning beat them there as well. So the Lightning know how to beat this team, but as some people might say, the New York Islanders are due. So
Three and 0 in playoff series against the Islanders, 2016, 2004, and 2020.
There you go. So, well, this is round number 4. Are the Islanders due, or are the Lightning going to continue their success against them? We'd love to know from you guys down in the comments below. Let me know. What are your predictions? Lightning in what? Let us know. Love to hear any and all thoughts for you. But that's going to do it for us in today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like down below on the video if you did enjoy it. That helps us out a lot. Lets us know you're enjoying these videos. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss out on future videos just like this one. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are still your defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolts.